All right. Thank you very much. My name is Phillip Kemper, and welcome to my talk where I'm gonna inform you about sequencer level protection on layer 2s. I'm going to tell you first what sequencer level security is. Then I'm going to tell you why it's important on layer 2s. Finally, I'm going to also show you how this is implemented on Zircuit, and I also want to give you some insight from our mainnet. Okay, let's take one step back first and look at how transactions are flowing on layer 2s. You have an RPC endpoint where users are transacting to, and these transactions are then forwarded to the sequencer. The sequencer is performing validation of these transactions and is then responsible for ordering these transactions. It then builds layer 2 blocks, puts them into badges, pushes these badges to layer 1, where they then have data availability, and then they can be verified through a validation mechanism, such as fraud proofs or zero-knowledge validity proofs. Well, with sequencer level security, we take one step back to this step of validation. With the validation at the sequencer, we have an extra step where we say we make use of an AI-based oracle, which tells us, is this transaction not only valid, is it also safe? If it is safe, yes, we can include it in a layer 2 block. If it's not, we have a new transaction status, which is called the quarantine for potentially malicious transactions. The rest of the transaction flow is then the same as with a normal rollup. The layer 1 never knows about these quarantine transactions. So now, as we have explained, what is layer sequencer level security? Why is this important, and particularly why is this important on layer 2s? Well, first of all, layer 2s bring with it a new ecosystem of new applications. The lower fees, lower block times lead to new applications, and there will be new vulnerabilities, and it's not enough to just check for smart contract vulnerabilities with audits. So yeah, there is more issues now, and we have to take it up to the infrastructure level to also verify that these transactions are benign. Additionally, there is a higher transaction throughput, as I already said. Hacks can be executed faster, and it's also harder for the protocols to track it. So yeah, we want to take it one step further and introduce security on the sequencer level. And finally, if you have an exploit, well, today, sequencers are still relatively centralized, and what has happened on other rollups once there were hacks? Well, one opportunity to protect users is to actually halt block production. However, this kind of goes against the principles of decentralization. And yeah, with sequencer level security, you can proactively prevent hacks and prevent collateral damages because of this sequencer not being halted. The good news is we have this on Zircuit. Zircuit is not only the first ZK rollup built on the OP stack, it's also the first rollup that introduces sequencer level security in a mainnet setting. And how did we implement this? Well, our execution client is like many others, is based on a leading execution client in the Ethereum ecosystem. It's based on Geth. What happens with a transaction in Geth? Well, Geth maintains two transaction pools, a queue and a pending queue. And when a transaction arrives in Geth, it will first have some basic validation. For example, is the signature correct? Is the RLP encoding correct? Is the gas limit sufficient? And then, if it has been validated, it can go into the pending queue. The pending queue means also the nonce is matching and the fees are good, and then it can be included in a layer 2 block. Well, with sequencer level security, we introduce an additional validation step between this queue and the pending queue, which tells us, hey, we're doing a risk assessment of the transaction before being able to include this in a block. So to sum it up, it's placing a transaction in a quarantine, which is the new transaction status. It means we skip it in the process of moving it from the queue to pending queue and put this transaction on hold. We want to do this in a way that does not prevent a censorship resistance. That means we also are being transparent what we quarantine. There is a public dashboard where you can see what is quarantined. You can see the contents of the transaction. You can see why we quarantined it. Also, we have additional RPC calls which tell you whether a transaction has been quarantined and what you can do against it. To have effective effective sequencer-level security, performance is really important. On our network, we have a block time of 2 seconds. This means we have to be able to do a risk assessment of transactions very quickly to not degrade the developer experience. Also, it comes at the cost of some computation costs. You never want to do the risk assessment of these transactions on the sequencer itself, because in terms of high throughput, you would risk that the sequencer would get halted. Another technical detail are deposit transactions. The OP stack, I don't know if you're familiar with it, introduces an opportunity to enqueue transactions via the layer 1. So we also need to scan those in a quick time to ensure they're being included and also scan for transactions. And we also need to record this on the DA. So how do you test such an AI-based oracle? Well, it is based on machine learning, so you need to have several things in mind. You do not want to overfit on pass tags, so we introduced an extensive testing suite with bytecode variants and even reproduced temporal states, smart contract states, and also tested it on multiple real-world exploits to test our machine learning oracle. Well, good thing is this is live. More than 400,000 transactions have been analyzed since our mainnet launch in August. So far, there have not been any exploits and also 0 false positives. We also aim to be in collaboration with the blockchain security and let them know if there are, for example, if we see any suspicious activity. If you want to learn more about this, we have a paper. We tell you how to decentralize this. Also, I invite you to read our documentation or talk to me. We are live on mainnet. We are testing this on real-world hacks. And yeah, with that, I thank you very much. If you want to talk about layer 2s or sequencer-level security or Zircuit in general, come find me around, or I also invite you to other events at this conference. Thank you.